I'm going to call this a draft economics video, just because it isn't going to be near as good as it should. I've just been spending so much time last day thinking about this stuff, and I still haven't got it completely. I can't diagram the whole thing, and I just don't want to waste any more time on it, so here's the half-ass version. So anyway, on this fractional reserve banking thing, yeah, it really doesn't in a lot of ways make sense. The only thing that makes sense is the idea that the government somehow has to get more money into circulation as an economy grows. I mean, obviously, if you have like 3 people on a desert island, you can get by with like $30 in cash to do all your negotiating with. But if you have 30 million, you're going to need more than $30, or all of a sudden, pennies are going to become dollars, because the money's going to be constantly deflating. Prices will constantly deflate because of the fact that there's going to be less and less currency to do your negotiating or your bargaining with or your trading with. And ideally, a currency is just supposed to be something that you use to trade with. So any cash that's given out should have an asset behind it. It should always be backed with an asset. Should be basically, banks should be pawn shops and not banks, but that's a whole nother point. Alright, so anyway, let's just say the systems now hasn't been started from scratch in a long time, so who owns what and who started with what and who got to play this game and make the most out of it is a matter of history, but it's old history, so there's just no point in going there. So anyway, the deal is the government basically says if you call yourself a bank, you just have to have 10% in deposits for the amount of money you loan out. So basically, if I started with nothing and I just said, okay, I'll just start a bank, and so I'll pay people, say 3% interest, to give me deposits, to give me capital. Just because I can get away with it. They're willing to give me their money at 3%. So I'll give them back 3% interest, and of course they have some expectation that they get all their money back anytime they want it. Then on that money, I can loan 10 times that amount of money. So whatever the amount is that I can collect in deposits, I can loan 10 times that amount, and I can collect maybe 7% on that 10% number. So theoretically, it would be 70%. So I can make 70% profit on that initial investment capital a year, plus owning, theoretically, all this is a secured asset. I would also own the asset itself. And the government is basically, what they're saying is they'll just give me the green pieces of paper, the IOU slips, to provide this 70%, because I only have this much green. I only have this much that people actually gave me, and the government's just going to give me this for free. And so the catch to this is, to me anyway, is why don't I just collect all this stuff? I could run the bank for 2 years and then just sell it all. Sell all the collateralized assets and just walk away. And then I'll make a huge profit. I'll make 10 times the amount of the depositors gave me. And I just give the depositors back their money. I keep the 90%, 90 times the amount that they gave me, I can keep. Plus the 70% profit I made for 2 years. So it seems like a hugely profitable business. So now the catch is that over time there's more than one of these bank things. So obviously there is some competition, theoretically. Okay, I don't know. We don't know all the insider games that have been played by the Federal Reserve, and what banks get approved and what ones don't, and what ones get to play this game. But there are a lot of banks out there playing the game now, and somehow at these numbers, which seem realistic. If you want to borrow money, it's going to cost you 7% if you're lucky, and if you want to make money on some deposit, you might get, if you're lucky, you'll get 3%. I think obviously they pay the very rich much higher numbers to seduce them to invest their money, and that's where this game gets really foul. is that each a person's dollar isn't worth the same thing. A depositor's dollar isn't. All depositors aren't equal, and so that's where the game gets really funky. It becomes a rich man's paradise, and the poor man obviously is just getting completely reamed. He's just getting colossally ripped off. So anyway, so now there are these competing banks, and I guess the game is that they've all made all the good loans they can make, and the only thing left to make are the higher risk loans. And so this 70% starts getting knocked down because you start losing the money you gave out. Now, theoretically, it's not your money because it's the government gave it to you to lend out, and you don't have to pay them back. And that's part of this racket too, which just makes it incredible. I mean, you're saying, how could they make this a competitive business at these numbers? I mean, somebody's ripping this system off royally to make it to make this fail. How could this possibly fail? How could you possibly fail when you're given free money to loan out? You're making a profit on the loan, the interest payment, and you also get to keep eventually the principal. Okay, because the government's not going to make you pay it back. Okay, so you get the principal plus the interest, and you still fail. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So what adds to this thing is obviously what I think has happened over time is, well, this game was played, and then when the numbers started getting a little funky because they're giving away money to people that can't pay it back, and like maybe they give a millionaire, maybe they give him $20 billion for his stupid house, and his house is worth $10, or some kind of games were played like that. So anyway, they decide, hey, I don't want to own this game. I just want to make money on the game. So what basically happens is that some people own, this principal thing, and so, that they're making money on the game. Okay, so they're making this full profit thing, where the other people are just making the 3%. So some depositors are making 3%. People who own the game are making these huge 70% plus. They own the principal, the capital. But anyway, eventually all this got sold out, though. They all decided, I don't want to own the game because then I can go bankrupt. Then I'm going to be liable if the thing collapses. I'll be liable for the whole ball game, and I'll go broke. So I'd rather just own a piece of the game, like a stock. So make this a corporation, make them all corporations, and that way they can be called people. And if they go bankrupt, you'll have to get the money from the person, the corporation. Okay. But the investors will just lose any money they might have invested, but they won't be liable for the losses. They'll only be liable to lose their investment capital. And so by owning a piece of one of these banks, you could still make a good profit, because I guess the deal would still be pretty good, because the bank is still only paying out the 3, and it's collecting the 70 plus the principal, plus on the free government money. So the more assets they can get, the bigger they can make these green numbers. By collecting more deposits from anybody, anywhere they can get them from, then they have a more excuse to get some more government money to make this circle bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's the game they've been playing. And so that's where all this bad debt gets, that's the idea of it, is that, lend money to anybody, because it's a very profitable game, as long as you're not liable if the whole thing collapses, if the bubble breaks. And so what else all happened over time is that this green stuff in the middle wasn't really green. It was partially really red. Okay, they started making red assets and calling them green, because what somebody could do is they could go to bank, A over here, and they could borrow on their house, and then they could invest the capital in bank B as a deposit, or as an interest, a stock option in the game. And so they could make money on the game, and make more money than they were paying in interest to bank A. And so that's like the invention of the stock market, where all these corporations are bought and sold and the game is played some more. And the stock market is basically the same kind of bubble. I mean, the real asset value of the stock market is, a tiny speck compared to what they call the market cap of the actual stocks. So this ratio might be 20 to 1, in terms of what you really own. So you think you own something, but you really don't own. When you buy stock in a company, you're not buying chairs and tables and floors and all that stuff. I mean, you say you think, not in real value anyway. So I mean, for every $20 of asset you think you own, you only own $1 of real asset. So if things go bust, you're done. So anyway, but this just seems like such a racket. I'm out of time, which is okay because this gets really complicated. You get all this swirly stuff. But anyway, it's the whole idea of making it into corporations that gave people immunity from all these disasters. But the big difference between now and the Great Depression was these green things in the center is federally insured. And so it's a different ball game because the responsible investor is not liable anymore. And it's a big difference. So let the banks go bankrupt. Let the investors lose their money.